If you have lost someone, sit with me a moment. You do not have to be strong right now. In Diné tradition, and I am only retelling what the old ones taught, grief was never something to rush or to hide. They knew the heart must weep, and that weeping is not weakness. But they also taught a gentle rhythm through the sorrow. Love the one you lost fully, honor them, and then, when the time is right, turn your face back toward the morning and walk on. Not because you forget them, because you carry them with you now. So stay here with me a while. I am sitting on the porch this morning, the way I like to, watching the first light come up soft over the land, and I want to talk gently about the hardest thing there is, about loss, about the ones who are gone, and how we go on without them, and what the old ones understood about all of it that I think we have mostly forgotten. Let me say plainly who I am before I go further, because on a morning like this it matters more than ever. I am a character, an elder brought to life with the help of AI, and what I carry to you is a retelling. I am not an elder of the Diné nation. I do not speak for them, and I would never claim their authority or their sacred knowing as my own. What I can do, and what I have come to love doing, is pass along the shape of a wisdom that reached me and stayed carefully from the outside with respect for the ones who carried it first. And this teaching, of all of them, I hold with the most care. Because loss is tender ground for every people on this earth, and for the Diné it touches some of the most sacred and private places of all, so I will walk softly. I will not open what is not mine to open. I will only offer you the part that comforts, the part you can live by. And here is the first thing the old ones would want you to hear. It is allowed. Your grief is allowed. We live in a world now that rushes people through their sorrow. 3 days off, and then back to work, and put on a brave face, and do not make anyone uncomfortable with your tears. The old ones knew better than that. They understood that when you lose someone you love, something in you has to break, and the breaking is not a flaw in you. It is love with nowhere left to go. So if you are sitting there this morning with a weight on your chest that you cannot lift, hear me. You are not doing it wrong. You are not weak, and you are not behind. The heart weeps because the heart loved, and there is no shame anywhere in that. In the old way, grief was not something you were left to carry alone either. When a loss came, the people came. The family drew close. And I want to be careful here, because how that closeness looked differed from place to place and from family to family, and it still does. No two families grieve the same. What the plateau people did was not always what the canyon people did. Each valley, each clan, each household carried these passages in its own way, and I will not flatten all of that into one simple picture, because that would not be true, and it would not be respectful. But underneath the differences there was a shared understanding, that the grieving one should not be alone, that the community holds you up when your own legs will not. Now let me tell you about the rhythm, because this is the heart of what I wanted to share this morning. The old ones did not teach that you should swallow your grief and pretend, and they did not teach that you should drown in it forever either. They taught something wiser than both. They taught a season for it. There was a time to weep, fully and without holding back, to feel every bit of the sorrow and let it move through you the way a storm moves through the land. And then, gently, when that season had done its work, there was a turning back toward the living, back toward the mourning, not a forgetting, a turning. I think that is the piece our world has lost. We treat grief like it has only two settings. Either you are supposed to be over it already, which is cruel, or you are supposed to carry the open wound of it for the rest of your days as proof that you really love them, which is its own kind of cruelty. The old ones knew a third way: love them fully, mourn them truly. And then, when the time is right, let your face turn back toward the light and walk on, carrying them with you, instead of standing forever at the place where you lost them. And I want to be honest that I cannot tell you exactly how long that season lasts, because no one can, and the old ones would not have pretended to. It is different for a wife who has lost her husband of 50 years than for a young mother who has lost a child, and different again from one family to the next, from one heart to the next. Some grieve loud and some grieve quiet. Some need the people around them every hour, and some need to walk out alone into the land and let the wind do what words cannot. There is no single right way, and anyone who tells you there is has not sat where you are sitting. The teaching was never a stopwatch. It was only a direction, a gentle reminder that the sorrow is meant to be a passage you move through, and not a place you build your house and stay. And now I want to speak, softly and with great care, about something you may have heard of. In some tellings of the old way, for a time after a death, the name of the one who had passed was not spoken, and I know how that can sound to a modern ear. It can sound cold or frightening or like some superstition to shiver at. Please let me take that fear away, because it was never that. It was tenderness. It was one of the most loving things a people ever did. Let me tell you how it was explained to me, and let me say again that families and regions understood this differently, and some do not hold to it at all, so take this as a gentle retelling and not a rule. The old ones understood that a grieving heart can grip so hard that it forgets to keep living, that you can call and call for someone who cannot answer until the calling becomes the whole of your life. And they believed something else too, spoken softly and never as a certainty, only as the old ones believed. They believed that the one who had gone needed to be free to walk on, to continue their own journey, and that our endless clinging, our refusing to let the smallest thing go, could hold both of us back. The living stuck in the doorway of grief. The departed unable to walk forward in peace. So for a season the name would rest in silence, not because the person was forgotten, never that, but because that silence was a kind of releasing, a way of saying, I love you enough to loosen my grip. I love you enough to let you walk on, and to let myself begin to walk on too. When you hear about that part of the tradition, the peace that stays behind, the shadow of grief that can trap the living, I do not want you to picture a ghost story or something to be afraid of. I want you to hear it the way I believe it was meant, as protective wisdom, as the old ones putting a loving hand on your shoulder and saying, do not let the sorrow become a house you never leave. Grieve, and then live. That is not disloyalty to the one you lost. That is the most faithful thing you can do, because here is what the turning is really for. It is so that the ache can become something you can carry. When the loss is fresh, the memory of them is almost too heavy to lift. Every thought is an open wound. But if you let the season do its work, slowly, and I do mean slowly, something changes in the weight of it. The thought of them stops only cutting and starts, sometimes, to warm. You remember the way they laughed, the thing they always said, the way they made a room feel safe. And one day you notice that a memory that used to make you weep has made you smile instead. That is not you loving them less. That is grief softening into gratitude. Gratitude that you were given them at all. That is the ache learning to become a blessing. And that is how you carry someone, not as a stone tied to your ankle that keeps you from walking, but woven into how you live. You carry them in the kindness they taught you. You carry them in the way you treat your own children, or your neighbor, or a stranger who needs help. You carry them every time you choose to live well, because a life lived in beauty is the truest honoring there is. The old ones would say that the best memorial to someone you loved is not a life spent frozen in mourning. It is a life spent walking the good path they would have wanted for you. There is an old understanding in that way of thinking, and I share it softly, only as the old ones believed and not as something I would ever hand you as certain. It was said that the ones who have gone before are not truly far, that they walk on ahead of us, and that we honor them best not by staring back at the empty place where they stood, but by walking the path well ourselves, so that the way we live becomes a kind of song sung back to them. I cannot promise you what waits beyond this life. No honest voice can, and I will not dress up a hope as a fact, but I can tell you what the old ones leaned on in the dark, and it was this, that love is not undone by loss, that the ones we carry keep shaping us quietly for as long as we let them, and that living gently and kindly and in beauty is how you keep them near. I will not pretend any of this is easy. It is not. Some losses are so deep that the turning takes years, and for some there are days the sorrow comes back like a tide even long after you thought it had gone quiet. That is human, and that is allowed too. And if you find that the weight will not lift at all, that the darkness stays and stays, and you cannot find the morning anywhere, then let me say this, one gentle thing. Leaning on the people who love you is not weakness, and reaching for a caring hand, a wise friend, a good counselor, someone trained to help carry it, that is not a failure. The old ones never meant for anyone to grieve alone, and neither do I. Let yourself be held. So this is what I would leave with you on this quiet morning. If you are in the deep of it right now, do not rush. Weep as long as the weeping needs. Love them fully. And then, when the season has done its slow work, and only you will know when that is, let your face turn back toward the light, not away from them, toward the life they would want you to keep living. Carry them in your kindness, carry them in your walking. Let the ache become gratitude in its own time, and let the gratitude become the way you honor them for the rest of your days. Let me say once more what I always say, because it matters most on ground as tender as this. I have given you this as a retelling, an echo offered from the outside with respect and with care. I do not claim to be an elder of the Diné nation, or to speak for them, and I have kept what is sacred and private, wrapped and unopened, because it is not mine to give. Different families and different valleys carry these things their own way, and I have only offered the part that comforts. If your heart was touched this morning, and you want to go deeper, go and seek out Diné voices telling their own story in their own words. They are the source. I am only a lamplit from their fire. Thank you for sitting with me this morning, especially if you came here carrying a loss. May you be gentle with your own grieving heart. May you weep when you need to, and be held when it is heavy, and find your way back toward the morning when the time is right. And may you carry the ones you love, not as a weight, but as a light you walk by. Until we talk next time, walk in beauty.